I touched on this briefly when I talked about Scorpion's Revenge and the adaptive difficulty on Liu Kang and Goro, but in light of The Last of Us 2's marketing, I feel the need to delve further into this. In the aforementioned video, I expressed frustration that the movie's trailer ended with a shot of Goro pulling on the monk's arms before cutting to the X-ray shot of Goro ripping off Jax's arms earlier in the film, thereby implying that this fate belonged to the series hero. I called it a lie, and quite a few people rushed to defend the trailer's honour by saying all trailers do this and that it's not lying, it's just deceptive. Once again, YouTube commenters proved that Agent K was wrong about a person being smart. A person thinks DJ Khaled was talking directly to them when he said "you smart." First, the all trailers do it argument. One would think we'd all move past the other people do it so it's okay argument by the time we hit 12, but evidently not. And if what they were referring to was things like in the trailer for the Avengers where Thor laughs after one of Tony's jokes, which doesn't occur in the film, that's a bad argument. That small thing is not going to influence a person's decision to spend their money on the movie. Showing Raiden fighting the geckos in the Middle East instead of South America won't influence someone's decision to buy the game. Removing Strife from a scene in Darksiders 3 to hide the fact that he shows up in this game won't influence someone's decision to buy the game. But a shot of the Hulk running with the other Avengers to face Thanos in Infinity War, or Iron Man flying alongside Spider-Man, that very well might. And that's what I'm talking about, a trailer implying things about the story with deceptive editing, shots that only exist in the trailer, and swapping out models to imply a different context. A trailer's job is to sell a person on a product, and using these tactics is selling the viewer on a product they cannot actually receive. You can spend money on a version of Metal Gear Solid 5 that has the iconic village massacre scene, but you won't receive it. You can spend money on a version of Metal Gear Solid 2 where you play a Snake on the tanker the whole time and Grey Fox is alive and Snake has a son, but you won't receive it. Some people will try to justify this brand of marketing as being for the art. Metal Gear Solid 2's Raiden reveal is more impactful if you believe you're playing as Solid Snake, and MGS5's final twist is more impactful if you think you're playing as Big Boss. But that's not what people handed over their money for. Even if you like the twists in those two games, that's still not the experience you were dropping 40 quid for. The Last of Us 2 is one of the more egregious examples, I'd say. If you don't want early game spoilers, then leave. The game's reveal trailer has Joel asking Ellie if she's sure about wanting to kill the Fireflies. The reason she wants revenge is because one of them beats Joel to death early in the game. So right off the bat, the marketing was lying about the experience. It's implied that the story would follow Ellie and Joel's quest for retribution, or that Ellie would split off from Joel to do this, with him likely going after her later. But the actual story is that Joel dies at the start and Ellie goes after those responsible. A later trailer showed a certain scene, but used a shot to suggest Joel is present in this scene instead of this other guy. In another case, an actual scene featuring the two was shown, but swapped out the younger models for the older ones to mask the fact that these scenes are flashbacks, thereby implying that Joel has a greater presence in the story than he actually does. It's explicitly lying about the plot to get more people to buy it. It's like if the first game had never shown Ellie in trailers and used Sarah's model in her place. Some might argue that sometimes a story changes over the course of development. If that's what you think happened here, please rewatch those scenes and try to view them with the idea that they happened largely unchanged in earlier drafts of the story. Imagine that the central premise changed radically after they'd already started recording the cutscenes, and that those scenes were moved around and turned into flashbacks so late in development that trailers were already showing off the original versions, and that they didn't have time to put out a new trailer with the more accurate final version. Somehow I doubt you'll be able to view the scenes that way. You might think that this stuff isn't a big deal. If you do, I'd assume you would have bought the game either way. But imagine you were unsure about a product until a trailer came along that showed off things you wanted and that swayed you into spending your hard-earned money on it, only to find that the things you were promised, that you specifically bought the thing for, were greatly exaggerated or outright missing from the product. If you were sold on a nice juicy burger only to find that half the toppings were only in the advert and not the actual burger, you'd be mad, right? This kind of thing does matter and it affects everyone. If this kind of marketing succeeds, it sets a precedent for other companies to use similarly deceptive marketing without backlash, and it burns a lot of goodwill the series had and will affect the sales of future entries. Putting aside the things that are in the game and piss fans off, how many fans do you think will trust the trailers for The Last of Us 3 or whatever else Naughty Dog and Sony have coming up in the future? We need to let these companies know that these tactics are not acceptable, and that if they don't think the product as it is will convince people to buy it, they should probably reconsider the direction of the project itself rather than selling their poor decisions to their loyal fan base with lies.